I'm Swen Vincke. I'm the founder of Larian Studios and the game director on Baldur's Gate 3.
So, Sven, what's it been like seeing your game finally be released on PC after like multiple years of just extremely hard work?
Oh, I was relieved that it worked out, I guess. I think relief was the biggest one. Obviously proud of what the team did. Happy that it was done because it took a really long time to make.
What did it being in early access help your team creatively or financially when you were designing and making the game?
Well, this is our third early access that we did. We did one for Original Sin 1, one for Original Sin 2. This has been the longest we've been in early access, so that was very different. It wasn't planned also, but some things happened and we just needed more time to finish the game. But I think you can see the impact that the players have had on the game and so many little things, and also a few big things. So it's been, I don't think we could have made it the way that it is without them.
Baldur's Gate franchise, along with Icewind Dale, have a huge loyal following. Was there any pressure when you picked up this game?
Yeah, there was quite some pressure, I can tell you that. There was a lot of pressure from fans of Baldur's Gate 1. There's a lot of pressure from fans of Divinity Original Sin 2. There was a lot of pressures from Dungeons and Dragons players, and so we needed to get all of that mixed and make that work in one game. So it was quite a line to walk.
Your studios are no strangers to RPGs, but what are some of the challenges when taking an existing pen and paper RPG and turning that digitally and making it fun?
It was more work than we expected because every single spell is almost something different in the game. So, and we wanted to support. The rule is if we put something in the game, it has to be supported well. Like if it's something like speak with animals, it's got to be all through the game. If speak with that, it has to be all through the game. One of the things that we underestimated is that how much work it was going to be to bring all of those things from the player's handbook into the game. It was really a lot. But we did it, so I'm happy that we did it the way that we did it.
How did your team go about deciding what spells you would include and what spells wouldn't work?
It was usually, if we could include them, we were going to include them, even though they were a bit of work. But if it was something like Dispel Magic that would upset the entire game, then for a long time it was in actually. And then we just said, no, this is just an extra game that we're going to be making. We just can't do it. So it's really scope. I mean, like if the team could handle it, then we were going to put in it.
Dungeons and Dragons has such a deep lore and mythos. Like, how'd you go about deciding what enemies to fight, what creatures to encounter, where to take place in the game? I know obviously Baldur's Gate, but like where are other areas you'd explore? Like, how'd you guys go about deciding what you were going to take from that mythos and put into your game?
Well, we wanted an adventure that was going to get you into Baldur's Gate, the city, because we wanted to end in the city, and so we wanted you to have a good journey that was very representative of the D&D experience, and that's how the Underdark came in to be. We also wanted to be a bit special, so we put in the Spelljammer elements, so that's also why the Githyanki became so important, because there were mind flayers involved. So we just wanted you to have an adventure where it started out like you're a miserable wretch and like everything's fucked up for you, and at the end of the day you're going to save the world and you're going to have to make really big decisions, but also an adventure in which you were going to have an arc where you're going to start with these people that don't trust you and they become your best friends or your enemies at the end of the game. So, and then we started looking through, okay, what is there in Monster Manual, what are the locations, and so we started picking things that made sense in that journey.
Talk about how you worked with Wizards of the Coast when you were designing the game. Like, what did they supply in terms of support and feedback to help make this game a reality?
So we had some of their designers very early on that came to our offices, and so we worked together as we were setting up the story. But then I have to say they were very hands-off, they were very cool, they trusted us that we knew what we were doing. And so I think as a licensor, because you often hear these horror stories, they were actually fantastic to work with.
You know, these isometric RPGs were like the heyday of the PC days, and then like publishers started to tell developers that people didn't want them anymore, but now they're making a huge resurgence, starting with Divinity. Like, why do you think that is?
Because I think they were always good games to start with. I just don't think they should have stopped making them. So it's like we're catching up because we have like decades of game development time, essentially, if you want, that where the genre hasn't been explored as fully as it could have been explored. And so now you're seeing players play it because there's a desire for it. There's something deeply entertaining about dealing with things in a top-down perspective, even if you can go into third person where you make tactical decisions.
Technology is always changing in the PC space, in the game development space. You know, new processors, new technology, new engines. Like, as someone who's been in development for a long time, what has that technology opened up for you for like specifically Baldur's Gate 3 that you couldn't do, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, there's a lot of things. I'll highlight a few of them. It's automation, like the amount of automatic processes that we have in place to test the game, to run through, to figure out if cinematics are working. There's really a lot of it, so we need performance for that, because it's continuous. It's continuous integration of new features, and it's continuous testing of those things, so that requires a lot of processing power. There's also things like machine learning to do things like motion capture, cleaning, and stuff like that. That wasn't possible before, so there's really a lot.
What's the biggest misconception for someone who knows nothing about game development development, looking at you and your studio from an outsider? Like, what's the biggest misconception?
People would underestimate how much manual labor there goes into every single moment-to-moment thing. Like when you see something that takes you 1 minute to consume, somebody might have worked 2 years on it. So that's the thing that it's no joke, that's something that I think people underestimate a lot. How much work actually goes in there in that one moment where you make that one decision, and then how much was behind it to cover that.
Now, the game has a silent protagonist. Like, what made you guys decide to not give them a voice?
So if we were to go give them, we knew it was going to be a game with a lot of cinematics. So if we would have done a voice protagonist and still give you as much choice as we did in character creation, that would like just blown up everything. Right? Not only in terms of budget, but also in terms of player time consumed. Because if all the characters would have been talking through all of that dialogue, that would be basically double the amount of dialogue that you would have to go through. And there's already 176 hours of cinematics in there.
Well, you guys went all out. I mean, most of your cutscenes and character models are facial captured and body captured. Like, talk about that process when you guys were going over the budget and the pre-production when that became an option for your studio.
Yeah. So it's not facial captured, actually.
It's not? Wow, it fools me, yeah.
We built an entire tech stack for that, but it's all motion captured, though. So the performance capture was something we decided on very early on, because when you're saying something, you want it, because actors do a lot, so this allowed the actors to actually put their personality in it, and they were as much a part of the creation of the origin characters, for instance, as the writers were. So they had a very big part to do in how they moved. If you see Lysel move or you see Shadowheart move, they move in different ways, and it adds to the identity of the characters that they have. And so I'm very happy that we did it, because it made the world really come to life, but it was a shitload of work.
What was your biggest takeaway from Divinity Original Sin 2 that you brought with you and learned in Baldur's Gate 3?
Yeah, no, I think it's a consistency of experience. So this is something we learn as a studio over time. So you need to make sure that you're constantly giving like really good quality entertainment. Typically it was in the beginning and somewhere at the end, or maybe at the end it wasn't that good. Here we really did a lot of effort to just make sure that you consistently had new things to discover, new things to explore, new systems to fool around with. And so that's a lot of work, and we did it over a 100-hour game, right? So this was really, really a lot. But I think the team has become very, very, very good at it, and so they've excelled here.
What's it like seeing video games transcend barriers and are now a global brand, US, Europe, Asia, everywhere? What's it like seeing people from all cultures and all realms of the world play your game and enjoy it?
It's cool. That's why you make games, right? So most game developers make games because they want players to play their game, and so when people enjoy what you've created, that's why you do it.
How much D&D did you play before? I mean, I would imagine a lot before you made Baldur's Gate 3.
I'm not the world's biggest D&D player, but I have an enormous amount of people in the team that play a lot of D&D. I have read a lot of D&D though, so I really enjoyed the books. I started with reading Dragonlance, that was my introduction to it, and then there were obviously all the video games. So I studied a lot on what D&D was, what made it tick. I saw a lot of people play. And then we started fooling around with it.
You said an interesting quote recently about with all these acquisitions that you want to stay independent. Why is that so important to you and your studio?
I don't think anybody in their sane minds would have made the decisions that we did, because it is this game should not exist in the sense that it was a very expensive game to make, and it's in a genre that has not proven yet that it can sustain that type of investment. It's proven now, so I hope there's going to be a lot more RPGs. But I was convinced that if you brought AAA values to the type of game that we were making with Original Sin 2, there was going to be a broad audience for it. Even if it's a little bit hard to get into, because at least people think it's hard to get into, they're actually very easy games to learn. And if you look around you, everybody knows turn-based. They're all playing it on their phones. So this is basically the same thing, except in a very deeper setting. And then if you add agency where your choices make a big difference, everybody likes that. So it makes a lot of sense to. I didn't know for sure, but I had high hopes that this was going to work out.
Being the founder of a studio and a creative director on like this game, is it hard to juggle the business and creative side and the design sides? Do you find yourself swinging sometimes one way more than the other, or do you keep a good balance?
I don't know if I keep a good balance, but I'm more on the creative side these days. So I have a really good management team that's behind me, and so they solve most of my issues. So the studio was made to create games, so games that I enjoyed playing, which is RPGs and strategy games. Those are the two things, and most people that join the studio want to make that. So as long as we're doing that, I think we'll be okay.
So what's next for your studio? You guys are going to take a little bit of a break, hopefully, and then, a well-deserved break. But what's next? What can you tease out there? More RPGs, more turn-based stuff, more D&D stuff, another original game?
Yeah, so that's the question everybody's been asking us, and I've gotten very good at not answering it. The break is the important bit right now for us. So I mean, I had developers often talk about their black hole after finishing development. I had it yesterday. The PS5 version shipped, and so I woke up in the morning and there's like this enormous amount of pressure that's gone, and I was like feeling, what am I going to do, right? So I need to readapt to life now.
I'm one of the few people who actually play Divinity Original Sin on console. Like, I'm a console gamer. I'm on my PC 12 hours a day. I don't want to game on it at the end of the day. So as someone who does it, I can just really appreciate that you do support the console experience, because I know it's not easy getting these games just from a UI standpoint onto an Xbox or a PlayStation.
Yeah, and then split screen too. So we actually we halve the screen on which we have to do it all. So I think the UI team did a fantastic job. I mean, they took risks in the way that they did it with the multiple wheels, but I think it works really well. It takes a little bit to get into, but once you get it, it's actually really smooth to play. I mean, most players in the office actually prefer the controller over mouse and keyboard, which was a surprise, and it's a testament of how well they done it.
I know Xbox is coming this year, and you're on PlayStation 5. But did your team ever even entertain the idea of it being on Nintendo Switch?
Yeah. So we're also big Switch players. So that would be tough. Yeah.